Like for real, happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday and I'm happy. It's good to see everybody. I am glad that you are here hanging out with us on our um, cool wellness cafe. It's just a place where we come and have unscripted conversation about wellness and recovery and sort of just hang out as a squad. And we like it. We have great conversation and good time of check in. Okay. So as we hang out, as we hang out, let's laugh a lot. We just had a really good training with our community healthcare workers, and hey, Sid, and it went really, really well. Had an opportunity to share. Thank you, Lisa, for jumping in and helping them understand peer support. And it was just great to watch the newer team become acclimated to who we are. Hi, everybody out there. If you can, if you will, check in on chat. Let us know what's going on with you, and let's just have fun for a few minutes. Can we do a check in real quick, going around, just saying hello, everybody? We got people coming on. Kim, how you doing down there? Kim, you look like you about to get on the phone. Kim's busy. Let's not interrupt her. She's working. Lisa K, how you doing over there?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Had a great training we just came out of and right into the cafe. So yeah, invigorating today. Had to get up and get it going today. But yeah, it's a good day. Sun's out. Mm-hmm.
All
Yep.
right.
Yep.
Invigorating. We can use that.
Yeah, we
City
can.
said, what's up with you, City said? How are you?
I'm pretty good. I can't complain. Hope everybody well.
Good to see you.
complaints.
Good to see you, Sid.
Lifeline.
KB, what's up? That's my people. KB, how you doing? What's going on?
I am good. I don't know where Lisa is right now that the sun is out, but it's not out here.
Here either.
So yeah, can you send a little bit of that up north, Lisa? Send it up
Yeah,
north.
y'all know I live in God's country.
Well,
Ain't that right, said? Ain't that right, said?
Yeah, we could use a little bit of that up here. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Bunny, what's going on with you?
Good morning. I am doing obnoxiously well today. And there's sunshine here. So, in Plaza Midwood.
Bunny, don't steal the sunshine.
That's what I broke sunshine.
Ariel, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm all right. I'm tired, but I'm here drinking coffee.
Well, I got some tea to join you, so we can do our drinks together. We have some people coming on. Hi, Karen. Hey, Roberta. CEO Tamika.
That's Mika.
I know. Mika's family. Hey, Mika, what's up? Where you been? What's going on? And so just wanted to say hello to everybody. We was talking before coming on, so how we're gonna flow today. And said you and Lisa can really grab hold of this from your South Carolina roots. We want to talk today about, and this is something that Kristen brought up, so I want to make sure that she has credit for this. So a few weeks ago, we're hanging out and we began talking about things that we have heard over the years that have been poured into us. Just good stuff that we've heard from other generations. Kristen began talking about things she heard from her grandmother, and I began talking about things I heard from my aunt, and Lisa began talking about things she heard from her grandmother. And so we just began processing, right, that as we're building wellness and recovery in our own lives, building these lived experiences, a lot of what we're building has to do with what other people have given us. And so that's what we wanted to today just throw out there and just share some of those good thoughts and good memories and some of those things that we heard that when we look at how we shape life today, that stuff didn't make sense then, Ariel, but it makes sense now. You know, it didn't make sense then, but it really does make sense now. I'm thinking about the loss of someone dear to me, and that's Coach John Chaney, former coach of Temple University and Cheney University, but he also coached my high school prior to me being there a few years before I was there. But the Philadelphia basketball community um, knows John Chaney very well. He's icon, legend. He was a father to many of us. And there are things that many of us are talking about now, and we're sharing on telephone calls, Facebook, different platforms that, wow, Coach Chaney told us such and such, and I didn't realize it till I was in my 40s. I didn't realize it till my 50s. That's the continued conversation that we're having right now. There's just been some good stuff poured into us, and they've become treasures. And that's what we want to talk about today. Some of those nuggets that we got. Kristen, you said something the other day that got us going about your grandmother. What was it that she said? Do you remember?
Oh my gosh, I get so much from her. I can't remember which
This
thing.
is
I know I've shared. Go ahead.
Y'all called to check in on her, and she was you called to check in on her, and I can't remember what it was, but I know what it was good.
Well, as I've shared with people at many times, my grandmother's 98 years old. And so here recently, she's had a lot of health struggles. She lives with my parents full time, and they're full time caregivers. But recently, she's had to go to the hospital, and she's dealing with kidney failure. She can't go through dialysis because of her age and all of these things. So there's so many of us in the family, grandchildren, children that are calling to check in on her. And so I'm calling to say, hey, how are you doing? And, her response is every time you ask her, she says, I'm blessed. I'm still here. I'm blessed. I'm still here. But more importantly, how are you doing? So regardless of her situation, her health condition, what her body feels, she sees every day that she's blessed that she's still here at 98. It's such a beautiful thing because some of us don't even have that perspective at our ages, that we're blessed that we're still here. But absolutely, she's blessed that she's still here and she's 98. So conversations are always things that stick with us, that mold us. She's impacted so many of our lives. One of the things, as we were talking about how we were going to start this meeting, before we end the meeting, I would like to share with something with you all before we close out that she shares every time in closing with us, so that maybe it'll bless one of you all the same way she blesses us. But it's the same conversation. It's the same ending of every conversation. So I do want to share that. But as I've shared with Lisa and Aaron, her name is Ruth, and you've always called her Granny. But over the years, she and I have a unique relationship, and I call her Ruthie Baby. And so Ruthie Baby gives me little nuggets along the way, and she gets, she's so gentle, but the sass that comes out of the nuggets that she gives you are so beautiful that you can't help but to, absorb them. So I love this conversation, Aaron and Lisa. I'm so glad that we're going this direction after our conversation about it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I grew up in a multi-generational family. And I absorbed so much, always around older people. I mean, I came into the world with great grandparents living. And so it was just so much poured in. One of the greatest for me, gang, was my grandfather. I struggled a lot in school by choice, just choices and decisions, hanging out in the streets and so forth. And my grandfather came down from Cleveland, and he had a stroke. And my mother was his only child, and he had a stroke. And he came down to spend time with the family. And I was running around doing my high school stuff, playing ball, running the streets. And I remember on one of that visit that he came down after the stroke, I felt compelled to sit down and talk with him. I wasn't spending a lot of time with him, and he looked at me. And he said, "How is school going?" And I've always been honest with him. I'm saying, "I'm really screwing up, Grandpa." And he said, "Son, it is not when you finish, is that you finish." And I've always held on to that. And as Bunny knows, I didn't get my first college degree until I was 54 years old. And I started the process in 1977 at 18. And so that always stuck with me when he told me that it's not when you finish, it's that you finish. And one of the things that has happened with me in understanding who we can be as men, especially men in the Black community, one of the issues is we start a lot of stuff that we don't finish. And so I have tried to not only make that a mantra for myself. um, People ask oftentimes, Aaron, the work that you do, you work so often and so hard. I spent a lot of time doing absolutely nothing in life. And so that resonates with me, what my grandfather said, that it's not when you finish, it's that you finish. And so now I'm driven to finish what I start. That was.
I want to jump in for a second. So my grandmother, well, I have several grandparents out there, but I have a grandmother that I grew up right next door to, and he's a whirlwind away from my grandmother. He is very direct and very funny with his directness, and it's very cut to the point. And he always gave us those little nuggets along the way too. Most of the time we were kicking and screaming and cussing because he gave you something that you didn't want to hear. But I can think about one time I was going through a breakup, being a young person going through a breakup, and it was like, oh, I'm moping around. We're all having Sunday dinner. And his advice in that moment as a grandfather for someone and he never showed a softer side of him. It was more of the figure that you didn't step out of line, you didn't get the softness, you knew he mean business. And he said, "Baby, men are like buses. You may miss one around a little bit longer, the next one's coming." And that always stuck out with me. He said, "A new bus comes every 30 minutes, every hour. So wait around. You be at the same bus stop. Another one will come." And I never forgot that. And so talking to my nieces as they're going through breakups, I give them that and they look at me like, "What are you talking about?" But then they get it. And it just stuck with me. Since I was a teenager, I got that piece.
Hey, Bunny, Zelda is on and says, "I'm almost 50 and want to get a degree. Physical pain, emotional exhaustion stand in my way. But you never know." Bunny, give Zelda some words of encouragement, because you and I both got our degrees later in life. What can you tell Zelda that kind of encourage her to go ahead and make that happen?
Zelda, I reminisce with Aaron. We would be telling our paper stories all the time, and so Aaron and I were on the same bus when we got our education. But I will tell you that as an older adult going back to school, it was far more beneficial to me because I actually absorbed and I learned things. I was able to take things that made sense to me, that I was passionate about, which in turn made me hungry for it, and I got good grades. The other cool thing for me is that for a while, when I got out of high school, I became a professional student for a while. And I always tell people that that was the most expensive cover charge I've ever had to pay, or my parents had to pay. But it was, I didn't appreciate it back then. And it didn't work for me back then. So it's timing. And when the timing's right for you, you'll know. But once I went back and and identified that growing up, I never felt like I was smart. I always made good grades, but I really had to work at it. And math was one of my worst subjects. It's only because I had that tape recorder in my brain that math was hard, terrible, terrible. But when I went back to school to get my bachelor's as an older adult, I started taking math classes. and I started doing really good. And it started making sense to me. And I realized at that point, and that was at the beginning of going back to school, is that um, I, I do like math and I am smart and it makes sense. And had been listening to those voices all my life. And, but I appreciated it then, and I appreciated when I went back to school. And it is something that I am very, very proud of. And it's something that you do for yourself. And you have your own accolades. And the more you go back to school, the more you recognize that, that you're smart too.
Thank you, Bunny. There you go, Zelda. You grab hold of that. And this is from two people who grabbed education and re-embrace education in later years. And I'm a firm believer, Zelda, if I can do it, you can do it. But as Bunny said, you do it as it works for you. Take your time, build what you want, and make it happen. Anything said? Anything, Ariel? What kind of advice? What kind of words? What did you hear coming up, or what has people poured into you? It's like, oh, that's pretty good right there.
Aaron, did you want to go first or?
I'm just laughing because honestly, the things that I remember growing up is my dad yelling at us to close the door because we're not heating Schenectady. My brother sent me one and it was like, life's a rock. Mommy doesn't like it, like, those are the things we got.
Yeah, yeah, I can dig it. Me and my sisters talk about those things all the time, Ariel.
Turn the
And
lights
Ariel,
off.
I can definitely relate to the funnies, because I have two things. Well, two people. When you asked this question, and I was thinking about everything we're talking about, two people stood out, and it was both my grandfathers. It was my mother's dad and my dad's dad. But my mother's dad, he was more comical. He was more what you see, what you get. But he didn't really say much because he was a cursor. He cursed all the time. So any kind of words he said out of his mouth were curse words. However, he showed us. He showed love. He showed all of his. He got us every weekend, and he got us pizza on Fridays. He took us fishing. He took us to the air shows down in Sumter, South Carolina, and even at Myrtle Beach, where I remember. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Thunderbirds, who are they have air shows. So I remember those times. But then my dad's dad said words to me like, "You always pray, son. Always, whatever you do, prayer, pray all the time." And my granddaddy was a pastor. He's gone. He's gone on now. But both of them are gone. Both of them are deceased. But I got the best of both worlds. My mother's dad was he was kind of wild, but he showed love. And my dad's dad was more serious, but he always told me to pray. And so I still carry those. Everything that they showed me, I still carry that day. And it makes me who I am because, it keeps me kind of grounded and well-rounded, because when things seem as if they're too much, where do we go? We go to prayer. We go to that quiet place where we can build ourselves back up again. So I appreciate both things that they gave me, everything that they gave me.
Thank you, y'all. Lisa, we have, I hope I'm saying this right, Samaya Holloway on, who is saying this is new to me. So let's welcome, did I say that right, gang? Samaya. And we just want to say hi to Samaya and welcome Samaya. And thanks for hanging out with us. So Lisa, what about you? What do we have? You always are giving some nuggets from grandma, or your mom, and your dad. What's going on?
Well,
Besides the pig with the curly tail.
yeah, true. I think that for me, my dad, one of the most famous quotes that he gave to me as a child that he that stuck with me through my entire life, and I've used it on my children. I've used it at work. I've used it, and I know Sid's heard it. It really did impact my life, and it would come to me in some of my when I'm really trying to choose a way to go, right? And especially in my younger years, my dad said to me, he said, "Well, you know, Lisa, if you want to fly with the eagles, you got to quit hanging around the buzzards." And that's meant different things to me over the years. You know, of course, buzzards back then, it was the friends I was hanging around, but now buzzards can be stuff that's in my own mind. What I'm putting in my mind, the things that I'm allowing in my serenity. So as I recover, I still use that phrase, but it has some different meaning for me. And I love because it made me appreciate eagles, because it made me, because I thought, well, what, it's a bird, right? But I really started studying eagles because my dad is a big eagle person, and what they stand for. And he knows a lot about the bird itself. And so I enjoyed doing it. It made me kind of go in to look to that. And, I used to say, I want my next tattoo is going to be an eagle as a reminder. But I ain't got brave enough to do one of those yet, because it's the one I have was like it killed me. So I can't imagine a big old eagle, what that would feel like. But anyway, so that's one from my dad. I did want to share some of the most meaningful for me that I pick up today actually came from some coworkers. And one of the coworkers that I had, his name was Jack. And Jack worked with me, God, I won't even say how many years ago, but 20 plus years ago. And he was an older person. He was actually retired twice. But he just wouldn't stop working, right? And he just wouldn't. And I get that too. But of course, I was early 20s, and you know how you're sitting around work and you're at break and you're talking about all the things that you're going through. Well, he had these two quotes that he quoted me, and I've quoted them at work. And he would say to me, Lisa, if it matters, it don't matter much. And he would say to me, you know, that person's got two choices. They can either get over it or die with it. So he would listen to my heartaches, or, oh, this person don't like me, or they're mad at me, or whatever. And he would say, you know what? They got two choices, honey. Either get over it or die with it, because it's really about them. It ain't about you. And so that was early 20s, and that has just hung with me. And there's times in my life that I actually quote that to myself when I'm upset about something. I'll say, well, got two choices, and that helps me move along. As also the thing that we take ourselves so seriously sometimes, that some of those things we stress over, that his quote was always, hey, if it matters, it don't matter much. And if you think about that, taking ourselves so seriously sometimes, tomorrow is another day, and the things that we're stressing over right now probably won't even be there tomorrow. Just really kind of helped me navigate my life. Last one from a friend, Miss Lynn Legier. This is her famous quote. She always tells me all the time, at least, I don't know how many times every time I'm with her, she says, you know that success, Lisa, is the willingness to go to option 2 or plan B. It's the willingness. And you think about that when you start something, right? We want to be successful, but sometimes when we're not, and we get stuck in that self-pity, she says that to be truly successful, that out the gate, you got to be willing to go to plan B. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Lynn hit a home run with that one.
Yep.
My Aunt Rosie, and this is one of my, you've heard 1,000 times. My Aunt Rosie used to always tell me that life is like a neck bone. You just eat the meat off of it that you want. And that's one that's always stuck with me too, right? That if that's not for me, I don't have to deal with that. If that's, I used to love Rosie, but that was my girl. Any more out there?
That's so funny, Lisa. You bring up coworkers. We all have a coworker who is known for nuggets of saying, Mr.
Uh-huh.
Cersei.
That's right. I was thinking
And
the same
one of
thing.
the things that stuck out, right. One of the things that stuck out to me when I first met him, and I actually gave to me with my grandmother and something back as a response. And he always says, it's already all right.
Mm-hmm.
It's already all right. If
Already all
you're
right.
if the agency is going through things, we're going through things, it's already all right. And
Already
so I
all
shared
right.
that with my grandmother as she was getting sick and things like that. I said, well, Granny, I said, it's already all right. And she said, babe, that's it never been just all right. And so that stuck out with me because in her eyes, not enough. So it's never for just being all right.
Mm.
So she took it to the next level. And so the gratitude of seeing both ends of it. And he always gave that. And when I shared it with her, she took it up another level. And I think it was at a time when I really needed the next level of it. So shout out to Mr. Cersei.
James is so wise, right, Kristen? He something he always tells me. I have a as my friends know, I have a gout diagnosis, and I try to stay away from that happening. And I remember one day, some weekend, I just decided that everything was sugar. I decided I needed to eat. And I came in on Monday with a boot. James looked at me and looked back down to keep doing what he was doing. He said, "Hey, Aaron, what happened to your foot? Gout?" And I said, "Yeah, I had a sugar weekend." And he said, "Well, I guess you did it according to how you wanted to feel." And he says that all the time. He always says it, well, I guess you did it according to how you wanted to feel. And he's absolutely right. And I think about that. Wait a minute. If I eat this, I'm going to feel that way. And that's not how I want to feel. So James is full. And James reminds me of my dad. I tell him that all the time. James Cersei is my dad reincarnated. And the things that he says, I used to hear 2557 North Patton Street in Philadelphia. James is my dad reincarnated, but he is just a dispenser of wisdom. And I love that guy. Anybody else before we slow the train down?
I have one.
Jump in, Bunster.
Um, I don't know if you could tell by my accent. I'm from the South, and born and raised in a very Southern Baptist home, and meaning that I also have very Southern Baptist grandparents. Well, my most favorite grandparent was my nanny, and she was just a beautiful soul, very strong Christian, loved Jesus. And when we would gather at her house for a holiday or something along that line, she would serve up this beautiful meal, and she would always tell everybody to save your fork. And as a little person, I loved that because saving my fork meant at when the meal was over, something good's gonna come, whether it be a homemade chocolate pie, homemade cherry cobbler. You know, Baptist women could cook, and so I always just laughed at that as a young child because the meaning of that to me was some good food is coming. But as I got older and spent more time with her as a young adult, she would explain to me that saving your fork is not necessarily for your food because you can save your fork when you're going through something difficult. And because if you save your fork, you know, after that's over, something good's going to happen. So, good old Nanny saved her fork till she went to be with God, and I'm sure there was lots of good stuff at the end of that. So save your fork.
I think I'm going to grab that one, Bunny. I like that. I'm going to add that to my repertoire. I like that very much. So,
Me
Kristen,
too. Thank you, Bunny.
you were going to help us land the plane.
So as most of us end a conversation, you know, we're talking to someone other end or you're leaving the house. You go through all of your hugs, your kisses, your love, conversations, whether it be on phone call or you're leaving out of the house. And Ruthie baby never says I love you. Ruthie baby says, pass my love along. At the end of every closing of every conversation, pass my love along.
Wow. That's strong. Ariel, I think I'm going to put that in my repertoire also. I think I'm going to put that in and use that. Yeah.
Me too. So
I want to say this as we close it out. First of all, thank you for that, Kristen, and thank you, everybody. I know there's more as we think of them, and over the next few weeks, we'll spend a little time. But for those who are coming on, viewing, please share. Always come on and let us know that you're here. But I want to tell you this, that the Cool Wellness Cafe has more to do with the time with staff together than anything else. One of the things that I do miss about our physical being together is the moments we would sneak away in each other's office, at the front desk, in the hallway, in the studio, back in the kitchen when Reggie was cooking. Just those few minutes when we took a deep breath from the classes, sometimes the mayhem, all of the things that was a composite of life at PRN as a staff. And those times meant a lot, just to be able to check in, me harass Bobby, Bobby harass me, of course, football season. And so this time together really, for me, replaces that. It replaces those few moments in Kristen's office where I just take a deep breath, wondering what's in her refrigerator, ready to go out and tackle whatever we have. So for everybody that's chiming in, I want you to know you're chiming in, sort of hanging out with us in the studio, in the break room, in Kristen's office, always in Bunny's office to get some almonds, in Lisa's office, right? Cheering up Zach and Sid and Ariel in the back. This is that time for me. And so I just want to say thank you. It's a 30 minutes worth spending. And that was all she wrote. So thank you so very much. And as a very wise person once said, and he is a very wise person and kind of handsome, it ain't that deep. And so I just want everybody to know it ain't that deep. It's just a time to come together in Cool Wellness Cafe and just hang out. So I look forward to hanging out with you next Wednesday, 30 minutes or so, just to sort of catch up and be together. Cool? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming on. We'll talk to you soon. We love you.